So now we're on Daf Nun Ches, about halfway through the Amud. Boy Rami Bar Choma me Rav Chizda Hamala mipsar chatasof al gab mizbech mao. Is there a violation here of bringing it onto the mizbeach when it's a chatas ha'of, and the chatas ha'of doesn't have any part that's brought on the mizbeach and burnt, although there's dam, but that's only zrika. Kol shemenu leishim rachmana v'hai emi menu leishim. Here, there's nothing burnt on the fire of the mizbeach. O Dilma, Kol Shishmo Carbon. Maybe the lav applies whenever it has the status of a carbon. V'hai nami Shmo Carbon. I mean, obviously, a chatas of is a chatas. It's a carbon. Amalei, Rav Chizda responds to Rami Bar Choma. Kol Shishmo Carbon v'hai nami Shmo Carbon. So the lav of bringing something on the mizbeach would apply to the chatas of. After the zrikas dam is matir the oaf for the entire oaf for the achilas hakohen. If he would bring now this oaf up on top of his back, he violates the law. Kitanoi, the Gemara says that in fact this issue is the subject of a machlokes tanoim. And what is the machlokes tanoim? Rabbi Eliezer Omer kol shemen leishin. Rabbi Akiva Omer kol sheshmo karban ola. My beinai. Is there a practical difference between these two opinions? Omar al Chizda, Besar Chatas Ha'of Ika Beinai. The machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva will chapen afkamina with regard to the lav of bringing the rest of the carbon onto the mizbeach, in this case, the Basar Chatas Ha'of. Rav Omar, a second afkamina. Log Shemen Shal Mitzora Ika B'nai. The Tani Levi, there was a brisa that was brought by Levi. Kol Karbanam L'Rabos Log Shemen Shal Mitzora. So Log Shemen Mitzora is brought together with the Asham Mitzora, and the Log Shemen itself is not burnt on the mizbeach, and he went ahead. And after the Asham was brought, he brought the Log Shemen onto the Mizbeach. So on the one hand, the Log Shemen is part of the Carbon Asham, and one entity, it therefore has the same carbon. On the other hand, there's no part of it that's brought on the Mizbeach. So if you go like Rabbi Eliezer, that Kol Shemenu Ishim, that would not apply to the Log Shemen. But if you go like Rabbi Akiva, Kol Sheshmo Carbon, then the Log Shemen has the same carbon. Let me just double check that I didn't. The Log Shemen itself is not burnt on the Mizbeach, but it's brought together with an Asham. The Asham is brought on the Mizbeach. Just 1 second. Now, we said that the Shtel Lechem, since it's linked up to the Kivtzei Atzeres, it's considered as if it's one with the Kivtzei Atzeres as it was brought up on the Mizbeach. So why not say that the Log Mitzora, meaning the Shemen, is also kind of like the Shirayim, it's linked up to the Carbon Asham, and therefore it should be subject to the prohibition against bringing these Shirayim on the Mizbeach. So he says, no, the Log Shemen is not linked up to the Asham because the halacha is that you could bring the Log Shemen even 10 days after the Asham. So it's not like the Shtei Lechem, which is the matir of the Shtei Lechem is with the Kivtzei Atzeres immediately. So wait a minute. So let's just take a minute to clarify this. So what are we saying over here? Just 1 second. So let's just think who holds what over here. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kol Shemimenu Leishim, and this is not called Kol Shemimenu Leishim. Rabbi Akiva Omer Kol Shmo Korban. So I think he's saying that it doesn't have so Shemen, no Korbanom. So Levi said Kol Korbanom. L'Rabos Log Shem. Right. So it means that if you go like Rabbi Akiva, since you have the drasha of the Bryce of Levi of Kol Karbonim, L'Rabos Log Shemen, it means that the Log Shemen is also called a Karmon, and therefore the lav would apply to the Log Shemen if he brings it on the Mizbeach. Masha Enkain, in contrast, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the fact that it has a shame carbon is not enough. It has to be something that's brought on the Mizbeach. And again, Rashi points out that even though the Asham is brought on the Mizbeach, but the Asham could be brought today and the Log Shemen could be brought on to, used for the various applications to the Mitzvah even 10 days later. Okay, fine. Ton Rabbanon, Sior Bal Taktiru. Right, we're not allowed to bring CR on the Mizbeach. Ainli elakulo miksaso minayin. Again, what if he brings part of the Sa'ar? We'll explain that in a minute. Tamaloma kol. So that's why we have the word kol. Eruva minayin tamaloma ki kol. So there's an extra word ki that tells you even a mixture of something that's CR with something that's matzah. My ka'amar. What is this brisa talking about? Amar Abaye, we have machlokas between Abaye and Rav. Hachi kamar. Abaye says, "Si or baltak tiru, ainli elikizayis." Right. In general, the shear is a kizayis. That's the halacha, and we should apply that shear also to CR. So when you brought onto the mizbeach CR, you had to bring a full kizayis. That's what we would think. However, chatzizayis minayin tamaloma kol. Since the Torah adds the ribui of kol, it's coming to teach me that even if he brings half of a kazayis worth of CR on the mizbeach, then he violates the law. And a ruvo minayin, what about a case where he mixes, let's say, a kazayis of CR with matzah, and it's not nikar, you can't even see the CR in this mixture? How do you know even that is subject to the violation of this law if he brings it on the mizbeach tamaloma ki kol? That's Abaye. Rav Amar Hachi Komar Sior Bal Taktiru Ainli Ela Kometz. I would only know that he violates the lav if he burns the komets. If it's already CR, it's already leavened. Chatzi komets minayin. How do we know that if he brings half of a komets, he violates the lav? Tamaloma kol, a ruva minayin tamaloma lo ki kol. Okay, so the Gemara now wants to analyze the machlok shina Abaye v'Rava. Hopefully, we'll understand this in terms of a kom. Oh, this is very good. Abaye savar yesh komets pachos mishnei zeisin. Now, the halacha is that you can do two different haktoros. This we learned back in, I think it was the first parak, one after the other. You could take the kmitza, the komets, and split it in half and bring it twice. And Abaye holds that the total volume of the komets doesn't have to be shnei zeisim, which means that if he brings the komets sequentially in two different haktaros, he's going to be maktir less than a kazayis. So therefore, according to Abaye, yesh komets v'pachos mishnei zeisim, because again, the totality of the two is less than shnei zeisim. If it's less than shnei zeisim, then by definition, when you split it in half, you're going to get with less than a kazayis. Yeah, you know how to go ahead. The yesh haktorah chusa mikazayis. That means even according to Abaye, yeah, just leave the door open if you don't mind. So when it says lo saktiru, that means that he brought, let's say, a complete kometz. And again, in general, we said he could bring it in two parts, but in general, he brings it uh, one full kometz. And now the word kol tells you that he's chayev for even half. Now, if according to Abaye, a kometz could be less than two kazesim, then the kol, which tells me half, means that he's chayav for burning even less than a kazayis. However, Rava Omar ein kometz pachos mishnei zaysin, that the minimum volume of a kometz to fulfill the kmitz of Menachos has to be two zaysim and more, and therefore, even if you bring them in two different haktaros, ein haktar prusim kizayis, you're going to have a minimum of kizayis in the haktar. So since according to Rava, a kometz is at least two kizesim, then if he brings half of it, and that's what we're saying is kol, it's going to have to be a kizayis. So therefore, you cannot be chayav for burning less than a kizayis of the shiari mincha, according to Rava. Itmar. Okay, we're going to be finished hopefully in about 5 minutes. We learned a machlokes between Abai v'Rav. Hamala misior umidvash al gabi mizbeach. How many malchus do you get? Right, the Torah prohibited us, number one, not to be maktir sior. Number two, not to be maktir dvash. And number three, not to be maktir even a taroves, a mixture of dvash and chametz and sior. So Rava says that if you use mala sior and dvash al gabi mizbeach, loka mishum sior, loka mishum dvash, loka mishum eruve sior, mishum eruve dvash. So Rava holds you get 4 sets of malchus for violating 4 lavin. Now, what exactly did he do over here? This is a machlokus in the Mefarshim. One approach is to say that he did 4 ha'alos. So he brought up on the Mizbeach 4 times. One time he brought Siyar alone, one time he brought Tavash alone, one time he brought a combination of the two, so that there were actually 3 halos, but in the combination of the two, the Taroves, he violates Kol Siyar and Kol Dvash. Because Kol Siyar includes any Taroves of Siyar, and Kol Dvash includes any Taroves of Dvash, and therefore when he brings a Taroves, he's going to be chayav 4 sets of malchus, one for the Haktorah of Siyar, another for the Haktorah of Dvash, and another 2 for the Haktorah of the mixture thereof, because he's got a Taroves of Dvash, and he has a Taroves of Siyar. Abaye Omar, Ein loken al lav shebechlolos. Now, once again, we have different Lashonos in Abaye. I'm going to go now, let's take the first Lishna. Ika diamri chada mi'alok. What does this mean? Rava agrees, according to the first Lishna in the Gemara, that if you're still with me, so according to the first Lishna, Rava agrees that he's going to get Malchus for the Si'ar, he's going to get Malchus for the Dvash, but as far as the Lavim of Tarovis are concerned, those Lavim are called Lav Shebechlolos. And you don't get Malchus. Now, the exclusion of Malchus in Lav Shebechlolos is derived in the Gemara Makis from Lav de Chasima, right? Because after the lav de chasima of lo tachsim shor b'disho, the Torah mentions malchus. So you're only going to be chayiv malchus if it's dumya, if it's similar to the lav of chasima. But a lav shebechlolos, where one lav includes many different isurim, that's not similar to lav de chasima, and therefore doesn't generate malchus. So Abai will agree here that you get two sets of malchus, but nothing more than two sets of malchus, because as far as the taroves, which is derived from kol and another word kol, those are considered lav shebechlolos because they include both the taroves of sior and the taroves of dvash. So that's what the Gemara says that Ika Diyamri Chada Loki. He gets Malchus for Sior, he gets Malchus for Dvash, but he doesn't get Malchus for the combination thereof. Ika Diyamri Chada Nami Lo Loki. The Holo Mayached Lava Kelav de Chasima. According to the second Lishna in Abaye, he doesn't get Malchus at all. I mean, Rava says you get four sets of Malchus, and Abai says you get zero sets of Malchus. No Malchus at all. Why? Because the whole Pasuk now becomes a Lav Shebechlolos. Why? Because since it says Kol Sior and it says Kol Dvash, and the Torah therefore is including in this prohibition both Sior Dvash and the combination thereof, that itself is a Lav Shebechlolos, and therefore the Lav of Lo Saktiru Mimenu Sior Dvash is not similar to the Lav of Chasima, because the lav of chasima designates one action, whereas the lav of los haktiru includes four different possibilities. There are actually three, and therefore it's a lav shebechol, so you don't get malchus at all. Now again, we've interpreted this Gemara on the assumption that he did three different actions, meaning he brought CR alone, he brought Dvash alone, and he brought the tarovis. And therefore Rava would say you get four sets of malchus. But there are other commentaries who learn that Rava is talking about a case where he actually only did one action. He actually only brought up onto the Mizbeach a tarovis of Sior and Dvash. And yet he gets four sets of malchus, which is fascinating because it means that we're going to apply the principle of heter mitztarif le'isur, which means that even though Rava requires a full kizayis, and here the kizayis is made up of both of sior and matzah, or dvash and something else, nevertheless the heter is mitztarif le'isur. So the matzah will be part of the kizayis together with the sior. And therefore, when he does one action, he's really doing an action of number one, CR, number two, Dvash, and the Tarovis, which is another two violations, another two lav. Okay, Rabosai, we hope that everybody's well, and tomorrow at noon. Have a great day.